everyone, welcome to our monthly presentation for 5 Star Chemicals, and just a couple of housekeeping things to go over. There is a chat to the right if you want to say hi or interact with any other fellow attendees. Please do so in the chat. We also have at the bottom of your screen, there should be a ask a question. If you have a technical question or anything for the presenter, please ask it in there so that everyone can see what questions have been asked. And at the end, we'll be able to go through all those questions and get some answers. And so with that, I'd like to introduce David Wonder with MoreBeer, and I will turn it over to him.
Thank you so much, Erin. How's it going, everyone? My name's David Wonder. I've been here at MoreBeer for over 10 years, I think going on 12 now, and managed most of the departments that I know, or worked in most of the departments I now manage. So I've had a lot of experience on the floor of one of our retail stores, and just had a lot of fun, working my way up with the company here and learning a lot as I go. And today we're kind of going to be showing off two of our newer products. We have our Brewbuilt uni tank here, the X1 or the Uni Plus, and then we have the icemaster here, the Max 4. And so I'm going to go over how they kind of work together, but then I'm kind of try to just go through some glycol basics and just try to make glycol just as easy as possible for people, and just kind of, be able to answer questions at the end. And I think as I'm going through this, I think the thing to note is that glycol is extremely complicated at times, but, read, a lot of the manuals. There's a lot of information out there. I'll try to go through some of it today and try to make it as simple on yourself as possible. Don't overcomplicate things. When you're setting your system up, it's kind of about knowing your own system and your own parameters and seeing how your system works and then dialing it in based off of what you're seeing. So kind of going through here, just real quick on the kind of the Brewbuilt brand. Brewbuilt's kind of one of our newer brands, and we are kind of showcasing all of our high-end equipment underneath this brand. So we have a couple engineers and a couple product designers kind of working on all of these products, which has kind of been a new change for us, and just been really cool. We're able to kind of work with these products, kind of redesign them, taking a lot of customer feedback as we go. So it's just kind of been a good experience, and we're getting some really, really nice products coming out. So kind of just going through just glycol and fermentation and why it's important. I think, one of the things when I was kind of learning home brewing, and especially, now I've kind of, work with a lot more professional brewers on the professional side of our business. Making great beer is, something I'm extremely passionate about, and something that I've loved kind of working at MoreBeer is just we have a lot of people that are very passionate about making really high quality products and great beer and just great beer in general. So when I was growing up in this hobby and learning, fermentation, temperature, and just, controlling your fermentation is just like one of the most critical elements to making great beer. And I think, after coaching hundreds of home brewers, coaching a lot of pro brewers, a lot of home brewers that I coach that are now going pro, I have a lot of experience and just a lot of, tasting a lot of bad beers as I've gone along to know that fermentation temperature is essential, and making sure, and especially on the professional side, if you're really trying to make a consistent product, having something that will monitor your fermentation and make sure that your temperature is at the right temperature for the whole period of fermentation is critical. Oh yeah, and the one thing I kind of wrote down here that I think a lot of people know is that brewers make wort, but the yeast really makes the beer. And so as you're kind of going through, you really want to make sure your yeast has the best possible conditions for success, whether that's fermentation control like we're going to be going through today, or it's having the right amount of yeast, whatever it is, making sure your yeast friends and your buddies have the best environment for success. That's really one of the biggest secrets to making great beer. I think, a lot of it, it's so much fun. You're able to craft a lot, but then really you need to make sure your yeast have that good environment. So, so you're not producing a lot of the flavors that you don't want. If you're making a Belgian, beer, sure, you want those fruity, banana flavors, but if you're making, an ale or a lager, that's the exact opposite flavors you're trying to go for. So I think just temp control in general, I think we're going to kind of just focus on fermentation temperature and really maintaining temperature in your fermenter. So today we're kind of going to be showing off one of our conicals that has a cool stick going through the top, and we'll kind of show that as well. So we are circulating glycol or cold water through a cooling rod or a cool stick going through the top. And then there's other devices. We sell a heated and cooled all-in-one unit that you just plug in 110 volt, and it has a Peltier chip on the side, which will monitor your fermentation. And that's what I actually got a long time ago. My kind of first, conical fermenter was one of those, and it was definitely life-changing, just being able to plug in your fermenter, set your temperature, set your differential, and then kind of plug and play. And I think another thing I'll just say is that you don't necessarily need to just jump into glycol or something right away. I think the key is that anything you can do to help your fermentation and keep your fermentation temperature consistent, whether that's there's the old trick of a wet t-shirt, putting it over to help maintain. So whatever you can do, whether it's a water bath and you don't want to use glycol, anything you can do to help maintain or get to the temperature you're looking for is critical. So I would also just say that I think a lot of the, when you're, I don't know how many experienced people or the group that we have, but when you are going through this, make sure you're aware of the yeast that you're using and the temperature ranges that it has on the package. A lot of them, especially for ales, are pretty similar, but, don't just remember to always check that. And almost every yeast should have that on the package. If they don't, you should be able to contact the yeast manufacturer or even us, and we should be able to help you at least narrow that range for you. So just a little, there's other ways, but today we're going to really focus on, glycol and, the max 4 here. So I think, glycol can be very tricky. We'll try to go through some of it. I'll try to keep it as basic as possible here. But sizing your chiller and the environment that your chiller in is critical to really understanding like how your chiller is going to perform and what temperatures you're going to be able to achieve in your fermenter here. So I think the length of line, your ambient temperature, there's so many factors that do go into it, but we try to make it as basic as possible. There's a lot of calculators online. We have a great customer service team. So as much as it is complicated at times, there's a lot of resources. We have a team here. And our manual is pretty good. I think the icemaster Max 4, that's another thing I meant to mention, comes with a really good manual. In there, we try to go over some basic guidelines of what to set your glycol percentage at and stuff like that. So, try to stick to the manual. And that's what I would say is that you don't need to worry about increasing your glycol solution or worrying about things unless you need to. I think that's the key, is that, set it to a baseline and you can always adjust as you go along based off of what you're seeing in your environment. So I would also say, like, one of the biggest, things I see, especially, I've worked with a lot of wineries, a lot of, home wine customers that, really take this seriously, want to cold stabilize. I think the thing that I've seen is that it's very easy to undersize your chiller too. I mean, it's maybe not as much on the home side, but it's just something to be aware of when you're kind of looking through, for what applications you want to use and what chiller you want to get. I always recommend just oversize it a little bit. You don't want to undersize your chiller and sit there and find out like, oh man, I really wish I could cold crash this fermenter by maintaining this fermentation temperature at this, and then you realize, oh, maybe you didn't get the glycol chiller that was sized right. So I think that's another thing that's just worth noting. And again, that's something we can help you with. And if you look in the description for the icemaster, we do a pretty good job of outlining what the unit can handle. And so yeah, I think we're trying to make it as easy as possible here. So just kind of a little bit about glycol and water. And I wrote a lot here last night, and see how much I get through, and I'll always be able to answer questions at the end here. But the manual recommends a 20% glycol solution. So water freezes at about 32 degrees. So if you're trying to get down, okay, so most professional breweries will, and maybe I should even kind of go through the chiller a little bit real quick too. So how the glycol chiller works is that you put a solution in the reservoir here. And so I don't know, Joe, maybe you want to kind of come and kind of can take a look here, get a little kind of close-up shots of the chiller here. But so this chiller on the inside here specifically will have a reservoir bath, kind of hard to see, but you see down here there's a reservoir. You have your coils around it. And then you have your different lines going into the glycol chiller. And then inside the glycol bath, there are, especially in this unit, and how this unit works is there's 4 submersible pumps in the bottom of this unit, self-contained. So the concept here, is that you are, and that's kind of what I wanted to kind of just stop and show the unit, is that you can use this unit with just regular water. I think, that's kind of where I started talking about water, and I'll just kind of sit and say, like, you can use water. No reason you can't. You just won't be able to achieve as low of a set point for the chiller. And you can see, like, we'll turn it on and go through it, but there's a controller here that that is controlling your actual bath temperature. And then each one of these controllers will control your fermentation temperature, and we'll kind of go through that and kind of show how that just kind of plugs in and goes through. So the key is that when you're if you have water, you just can't reach that low point. And really the key is because you will freeze the chiller. If you're, and I was kind of starting to say is that a lot of professional breweries, they, most are maintaining a bath temperature somewhere around 27, 28 degrees. So that because a lot of breweries, they're maintaining multiple fermenters. They may be fermenting, 1 beer, 1 lager at 50, doing an ale, and then cold crashing another one. So I think the key there is that, especially on a pro level, you have to really use glycol. There's just no real way to achieve that low of a temperature without freezing the inside of your chiller and damaging your unit. And so I think that's really, critical. And there's, a lot of information about that. So yeah, I think that's the thing to note is that, this unit could do water. You could do water with a lot of these glycol units, but really not how they're intended to work, and just won't really achieve that low temperature, especially if you're trying to cold crash. If you're trying to cold crash, maybe 1 fermenter, you can get away with it, but you really need to get that down that low to especially if you're doing 2 fermenters. So that's why, at least in our manual, as you go through, we recommend a minimum of a 20% glycol solution using this unit. Even though you can use water, not what we recommend for this unit. So yeah, so kind of want to go through all that. Yeah, I made a note here. You want to make sure to use the right glycol. I think there's you can Google. We sell food grade propylene glycol, and that's what you want. A lot of companies like ours will sell that. So just make sure you're using the right glycol. Yeah, and the instructions are really good. I went through the instructions last night again. Really good instructions. Basic, kind of goes through everything, how to set just like the basic amount. I wrote some. So a lot of the chiller companies, to our company, we have I meant to mention that as well. We have a really good article on glycol. So if you go to morebeer.com, go to our article section, there's a really good article on glycol basics. Inside that article and across every single, I have reviewed every single glycol website, pro companies, and they all have about the same factors in there about the basics of what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to go about it. Just some things to just kind of go over, and we can go over this again. There's this glycol freeze point too, and something, I don't want to go too far into this, but you really want to be 20 to 25 degrees below whatever your operating temperature is. And usually that will equal about a 33% glycol solution or somewhere in that range. And that's, what you see a lot of breweries doing, and just kind of a typical range of glycol percentage. But again, adjust, right? I think that's the thing, especially on the home brew side. I think you don't always need to go that low, and that's why we recommend starting with 20% and adjusting. So I'll move on. We can go into that more later. I think the last thing I kind of wrote down here is just that there is a Brix to glycol conversion chart. So if you're one of the things is that, periodically you may want to check your glycol percentage. A lot of professional breweries do, and something that you just want to be aware of, that you can easily check the concentration by using a refractometer. And there's a lot of charts out there that will kind of show you based off your bricks what the glycol percentage is, and then that also has your freezing point right in that chart. So it really makes it easy to kind of understand, even though it's complicated, kind of understand what you're supposed to do, the freeze points in relation to the glycol concentration. So I will move on. I think I just wrote down, again, just, we have a very easy article. Glycol can be extremely confusing. I'm here to answer questions. We have a team answer questions. I think we'll move on. If there's questions, we can kind of answer them later. So I think the next thing, kind of just to go over again, we kind of went over a little bit, but the Brewbuilt icemaster Max 4. So the cool part about this unit, especially for me, that the price point of the glycol units that our company is putting out, especially on the homebrew level, glycol units like this you just didn't see at this price point. I think this guy's $950. Our Max 2, I believe, is $700. So those are kind of our two main Brewbuilt chillers on the homebrew side. And you just didn't see chillers with this quality, this output, the power for these price points. So I think that's really cool for me to see, and why this is one of our best-selling products lately is just because you just don't see a lot, and you haven't over the years, of something like this with this many features, all integrated for that price is pretty amazing. So kind of going over it again. You have has the ability to do 4 fermentations. So let's turn this bad boy on, actually. So you see it has 4 different controllers up top for the 4 different fermenters. Each one has its own probe. So we'll be taking this and putting it in the fermenter. The one kind of little downside of this unit is you do actually need every probe connected to it. So even if you're only using one fermenter, you do need to have these guys connected. If it comes out, it should be giving you an error like it does right there. So not ideal. So you do need to have all 4 probes plugged in, even if you're not using them. So we kind of went over it. It's very self-contained. We have another unit that, you have submersible pumps that you actually put inside yourself. That's not how this unit works. Everything's inside the unit. You have all 4 pumps. You have the lines inside. The controller's right on the out. The face, your glycol lines, you're in and out for glycol right here. So just very easy right out of the box. We literally took it out of the box, set it up, and just right there. So very easy to use. Comes with wheels. You can put it on wheels. It's just a very powerful unit too. I think I believe it's a 3/8 horsepower compressor. It's 8 gallon capacity in the tank there. What has 0.26 tons of cooling capacity of 110 volts. So pretty amazing little unit. Some of, just so kind of people understand like the limitations of this. So we do a lot of tests here internally, and we're constantly doing tests, revising our product descriptions. So we've been doing tests with this unit at about 75 degrees ambient with this neoprene insulation that's on this Brewbuilt conical over here. But we've been able to do 2 1-barrel conicals, 2 1-barrel 31 gallon conicals. And that is cold crashing. So we're able to do 2 of those. It looks like we're doing 3 to 4 half-barrel tanks. And then you are able to do 4 5 to 7 gallon fermenters. And again, it depends on your ambient, depends on a lot of factors. I think that's the thing is like, I've worked with so many customers that follow the stats, follow the guidelines, but at the end of the day, they're still finding that they're either not getting the temperature they want. I remember we were with one customer and we had to just where he was at and what he was trying to do. We had to at the end of the day, we had to wrap the whole fermenter in more Armaflex, which is a better insulator. And then finally he was able to achieve the temperature he wanted. So I think we'll try to do the best as we can to give you kind of some guidelines, but then again, it's just going to depend on your environment. But we're here to help. Set it up, try it. test it out. And you can always make adjustments. I think that's the cool part about this, is that you're not locked into, if you need to go extra concentration of glycol, that's easy to do. You just want to make sure that the chiller itself is not undersized for what you're doing as far as the cooling capacity. So yeah, I showed all that, talked about that. So the controllers, I don't know if we could even do it again and show the controllers, but you hold for the top controller here, you are kind of holding the top arrow up. One thing to note, that this unit does just work in Celsius, unfortunately, so you do have to do conversion on your phone or whatnot. So you hold up. Once you've held that, you saw it flashing, so now it's back to what it is, but just set. But if you hold it, it'll flash. Once it starts flashing, then you can adjust the set point that you want to go to. Once you've set the set point, it'll just leave it alone. It'll stop blinking. So we have it 19 at set point, but right now it's reading 14 degrees. So very easy to use. The controllers you just hold up, you kind of plug and play. This one on the bottom is a little different, where you are holding set, and then it should start blinking F1. And then once you are at that, you want to hold S end up to adjust the temperature. You actually have to hold the S, and then adjust where you want. And then when you're done adjusting whatever temperature you want on this controller, you hit the power button, which then sets your set point. And then if we had set it correctly, the unit we could actually set that and turn it on if we want. Why not? Why not turn it on? We'll hear it going crazy. So yeah, you have to kind of use both hands and kind of set that. And yeah, maybe we didn't get to turn on. But yeah, see, if you don't hold set, that's where you get into the other parameters of the unit, which is the differential. And there's an ability to also recalibrate the unit with a standard thermometer. So few different settings inside this control. This one's a little different than the other guys. Oh, I was already on it. That's why. Yeah, and so there you go. Now we weren't below the differential there. So now we got below the differential, and then you hear the unit kicking on. Yeah, pretty quiet little guy here. And, yeah, so that's basics. Pretty easy to control both controllers. Really plug and play. Very simple unit. You just add your glycol mixture in the right percentage, and kind of there you go. So we'll turn off the compressor so it's not just like running. I guess I could use one hand. Haha. Cool. So that is the Brewbuilt icemaster Max 4. And then, kind of go over our, Brewbuilt X1, fermenter here. This one's the X1 Uni Plus. We have 3 different versions of this. We have the regular, just the X1 Uni. I think I missaid that at the beginning, but yeah, this one is the X1 Uni Plus. This one comes with your cooling rod, your Armaflex, or not Armaflex, neoprene, kind of set up, ready to go to be able to plug right into a glycol chiller or anything. So it's kind of ready to go. The base unit is same kind of concept, just doesn't come with your neoprene, your cool stick. And then our top end unit is kind of the one I was talking about at the beginning, similar, but it's all self-contained cooling and heating. It has a Peltier chip on the side, which does all the cooling. Then it has a firm wrapped underneath that does the heating. So our top end unit does everything for you. Plug it into a 110 volt, just do your temperature right on the unit, and then it will heat and cool right there for you. Yeah, I think, some of, we have our flex chamber below. This is kind of a newer kind of part to this fermenter. Allows you to dump yeast, put hops in there, put fruit in there, kind of just a little chamber to kind of have some fun with. You have your thermal well, which we're kind of just put our fermenter in right now. Yeah, I think this has been a kind of a work in progress over the years for us, looking at different fermenters, designing our own, and then really kind of putting together, yeah, kind of all the things we've been all talking about as managers into one amazing line of fermenters. Very nice footprint, easy to use. Gallon markers are on the inside, beautiful stainless. Been really cool to see the evolution of this product. And I think that's pretty much it, Joe. So I think we'll maybe move the fermenter down and kind of just show how the probe hooks in, and that's kind of the dealy bob. Pretty easy to do, but just kind of move it down and then put it into the, yeah, beautiful. So another thing when you are setting up, if and when you set up your Glycol system, you do want to make sure to have your fermenter as close to your chiller as possible. Ideally, the less you have as far as length of tubing will just be, less areas for you to lose temperature. Any more surface area that the liquid's going through, it will heat up. It will put more stress on your chiller. And you see a lot of Glycol systems, all the lines are insulated to make sure that you're not losing, your beer or your product is not heating up as much as possible. So the longer lines you have, obviously that will not be ideal. So, I think what's cool about this product too is it comes with, some auto shutoffs right here. So, you're running your Glycol loop, and when you're done, you kind of just unhook these quick connects. And this has an auto shutoff inside, so it'll kind of just stop the liquid automatically. So you don't have to kind of worry about that. And this is also an auto shutoff right here. You can, kind of burp it if you need to. But so that's kind of how those guys are. And so, we very simple. We when Joe and I were kind of getting all these products together, there's not a lot of things you need. We kind of try to make this as simple as possible for you these days. This is one complete product. And that guy really just needed to get the tubing and some hose clamps, and we were kind of off to the races and ready. I need a little Glycol, but besides that, we were ready to make some beer. So it was pretty cool to just grab all this product. Very simple, unlike back in the day where we'd need to go grab 100 parts. So, which is great. We did do a little notch on here, but maybe we didn't. So then we have our Glycol in, the Glycol out. So very simple, just put it on, hose clamp, very easy to do. And this is pretty much it. I don't know, Aaron, how many questions do we got? Do we have any?
Yeah, you have 8 questions, and there's a couple other questions in the chat as well.
Okay, cool. I think that's a lot of it. I think I could go into more in Glycol, but I think that was kind of most of it. We'll kind of show how the fermenter hooks up the lines, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So, and that's really it. Very simple. You could insulate these lines if needed, depending on where you're at in the country and what you're trying to do. But yeah, not necessarily needed, especially if you're probably only running one fermenter off this guy. So I don't know, Aaron, I could take some questions now. I mean, we can actually quickly see my notes and see if there's anything else I was going to go through, but
sure. We'll start with some questions. What's the preferred method of removing the lid and disconnecting the cooling lines so I can move my brew bucket to start the bottling stage without spilling Glycol?
You want to read that one more time for me?
What's the preferred method of removing the lid and disconnecting the cooling lines so I can move my brew bucket to start the bottling stage without spilling?
Yeah. Okay, so in the brew bucket, the lid is not like a band clamp like this. It has if I remember, it has little buckles on the side. So kind of went over it a little bit there. Is I would recommend, at least on the top, if possible, to get some kind of auto, some these are called quick connects. That way the liquid will kind of stop immediately. This inside there, it's just an auto shut off. So that's what I typically do in a lot of my setups at home too, is I'll have these quick connects anywhere on a draft line where I don't want to have any issues. These are, I forget the pressure rating, but these have a really high pressure rating as well. So great for any application where you just want, you have glycol flowing, you just want to turn it off and not worry about glycol just spilling out right there. These are great little fittings, very easy, click, push in, click out. So that's what I would recommend for the top if possible. I don't know if that will work for that person, but that's usually what I would recommend on the quick connects. For the lid, that is a little bit tougher. I kind of see what the person's saying, but I would probably myself kind of just put it to the side as best as possible. There's probably a lot of crowds in the coils there, which is probably why they're also saying that. I understand what they're saying. It's kind of a pain to kind of take off the lid right after you're done fermentation, but there's probably not the best way except to kind of just put it either, I don't know, like in a bucket, or laying kind of half in and out of a bucket is probably what I would do. Just kind of thinking in my Star San bucket I'd have there. I have my bucket of Star San. I'd probably just take my lid. I think the lid, what the person's talking about has like a little, the coils are right underneath the lid. So I take the lid and kind of put it right in the bucket. So it's kind of hanging out right there so I can access it easily and it's not getting stuff everywhere. So I hope that answers that question. If not, they could happy to go back and forth with them and email them and so.
He
My name's
said
David Wonder, and I'm okay. Perfect.
He said thanks.
Perfect.
So, and
okay,
I can
if
send
you need more, I'm always here.
Your contact information, or whomever you want them to contact after the presentation if they have more questions. But the next question is there a glycol system that also does heating?
There is. So I would have to double check this unit, but yes, there are units that do heating and cooling. Specifically our crier units, that's kind of what they're intended for, especially on the wine side, where you just are doing a lot of really big temperature swings. So yes, our crier glycol units absolutely do heated and cooled. I've sold many of them to do heating and cooling. I'd have to triple check on this one if it actually will go into heating mode. I don't think so, but yes, there are absolutely glycol chillers that do that. There's really glycol chillers for many applications. I've been to trade shows, chillers that will go, negative 80 degrees. I mean, just absurd temperatures that you would never even need in a beer application. It's, doing just extracts and different things where you just need to, so there's chillers out there for almost every application. A lot of it is price point, right? I think that's the hard part is like, I don't think the heated and cooled chillers are the cheapest ones out there. But I could double check this one and email out to everyone. I don't think this does, but I'll triple check that. But yes, there are definitely chillers that do heating and cooling.
Great. Next question. What are the maintenance requirements on your IceMax chiller?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know of much, except making sure you're not freezing your pipes. I think that's why it's really critical is maintaining the right glycol concentration for your setup. So periodically checking that, especially in a pro system, there's just a lot of evaporation too, and a lot of things where you could be losing glycol. I mean, I've just heard tons of different stories. So checking glycol percentage is definitely critical to make sure that you're not freezing inside of it. Past that, I don't really think you need to do anything. I don't really know of anything. On bigger systems, I believe you need to add oil to them. And there's a few other things you could do as far as cleaning on the inside of the units. But I think oil is really the only thing that some of these units do take, but it's not for a long time that you need to usually worry about. That's mostly the chilling and the freezing of your pipes is usually the biggest thing to worry about.
Okay. What about adding a heater to the controller? What heater would you suggest?
A heater as far to, so the firm wrap heaters we sell, I don't know exactly what this person is talking as far as application, but the firm wrap heaters we sell, just the basic wraps that we sell on our website, that is the same thing that is on my 27-gallon heated and cool conical at home, has worked a dream for me for 8+ years. And it's a simple firm wrap. It's literally just wrapped around the base underneath my insulation, and it does a beautiful job. So I think that's what I usually typically recommend to customers, just because it has, it really does have a lot of heating power for usually what you're doing with most ales or beer applications. So.
All right. I know Spike recommends changing the inlet and outlet of the chilling coil depending on if you're just maintaining fermentation temps or cold crashing. Is this something you also recommend with the Brewbuilt fermenter and coil?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I was actually meant to ask our designer that on the coil here, because that is true. I do know exactly what this person is talking about. I forget how our engineer has designed this coil as far as which inlet and which outlet. I actually thought he had put an arrow on here. So that is something I do need to ask myself. And I would like to get the right answer for that. So I probably won't say, and I'm happy to email out to, I don't know if you have everyone's email, I can email some of these out, but that's a great question that I'm not 100% sure on, but he is right. Usually there is a right way to do that depending on what your application is and the different temperatures in your fermenter, for sure.
Okay.
But I don't know exactly the right way. So if we can get that guy's or that person's email, that'd be great. I would love to get that and put that in our product description as well.
Yeah, I'll be sending
I didn't see it in there.
Follow-up. So I'll send a follow-up, and I can work with you to make sure we have all the correct answers on these questions, and I'll send that in the follow-up email.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, Aaron. Thank you. Yeah, I do. I'd like to know that question myself for sure.
Okay. Next question. We're using 70% inhibited propylene glycol in our older brew tech,
Wow.
1/3 chiller system for 1 barrel bright tank. Our tiny aquarium fountain pump intended for water is struggling. Can I go higher pressure wise and make it work, or is it time to upgrade to an actual coolant pump?
So interesting part is 70% glycol is a really high concentration. Like kind of like what I was saying is most breweries only run like a 33% standard glycol concentration. So that's a lot higher than I've ever heard, as far as especially on like a home brew thing. So you may actually have too much glycol per concentration. There is kind of like a right area where you don't want too much refrigerant or glycol to water. So so to answer the actual question, no, a lot of the small aquarium pumps should be just fine. That's what I've used, what I've seen used in a lot of these applications. So, and they're nothing special. We I think get them on Amazon, get them anywhere. So I would say that's probably not, but again, everyone's system is different. It depends on how long their runs are, how far they're trying to pump the glycol up. So I would probably have to work with that person to understand their system a little bit more, which I'm happy to do. But yes, if their fermenter is high up, or if they have a really long run, then yes, you may need more pressure to be able to pump to get to the fermenter. But it might just be too much glycol too. So I don't know. I would say probably not the pump on a 31 gallon. I don't think that would be the issue, is the pump, unless you have a really long run. So I would have to kind of go through that in a little bit better detail. But if you have it really close to your fermenter like this, short runs, not going up very high, I would say that the submersible pump should be just fine. You don't really need a super powerful pump unless you are doing some really long runs or something crazy, or I'm thinking maybe that glycol solution is too thick. I don't know. That's a good question. I would be surprised if it's the pump.
Okay. He says thanks. So next question. I'm interested in a discussion around chilled water loops, distinguishing between an open loop with an open reservoir and pumps pushing to each cooling application versus a pressurized loop with a solenoid valve allowing coolant into each cooling application.
Okay, so this one, we don't sell a lot of completely closed glycol systems. Almost every system our company sells is an open system. In other words, you have your bath open, exposed to the air. You see a lot more closed systems on commercial systems. I think the hard part, in my basic reading, and again, I have a lot of experience, and coach hundreds of home brewers and many, many professional brewers. I'm learning every day. So I would think that that's one thing I would say I am an expert, but I still can learn a lot. The closed systems, I think, especially on a homebrew level, are tough because like on a pro system, if you have a leak or something, then you need to be able to put the glycol in under pressure. It's just a harder system usually to deal with. So a lot of our systems are set up to be open like that. That being said, I think a lot of okay, so getting a little deep here, but this unit doesn't have a lot of the features I'm about to talk about. But like on our cryo units, for instance, every system comes with a pressure switch. So how those units are set up is that they are set up the same way that this person's talking about, where they have a loop, they have a solenoid. The solenoid senses that the fermenter needs liquid, opens the I like to call solenoids like little doorways or little gateways. So opens the gateway, allows glycol to flood into your glycol jacket or your cool stick or whatever, and then closes. And then the cryo systems, how they're designed is they're designed to sense the pressure in the system, whether the system is an open loop or not. It doesn't matter with that system. It's sensing the amount of pressure that's in the whole system. And then when a door opens and the glycol flows into the jacket, the system notices that drop in pressure and then will kick on the unit. And that's how those units, and how I typically set a lot of wineries up with and breweries up with systems, is I will do that exact same thing: solenoid, solenoid, solenoid. But the chiller still is an open reservoir, but then has a pressure switch integrated into it, and you have to dial that pressure switch in. So there's just differences, right? I would say that I don't know if one is necessarily better than the other necessarily. In my experience, I've sold so many chillers that I've never really had someone be like, oh, well, I really should have bought a closed system, right? I just never has come up in my 12 years selling to breweries. And so it's more about the settings of the glycol chiller and how it operates and how it's sensing that how it's sensing the pressure in the system. So our cryo chillers, that's what happens. You literally are like setting up your loop, setting up all your solenoids, putting glycol in, and then dialing that pressure switch in to be like, okay, cool. I've narrowed my pressure in my setup down so that the system will know if it drops some pressure to be able to kick on the unit. So it just depends on the unit, I would say. And I don't know if there's really one is better than the other necessarily. I like an open system like this. I think it's easier to deal with, less problems I think can arise. You're able to access the glycol easier, but I don't have as much experience with closed loop. So I'll just kind of end with that. I think I have a lot more experience with chillers that have an open reservoir, and mostly what I see on the market and what I'm selling to most professional brewers and home brewers and wineries.
All right. How can a glycol chiller best be used for wort chilling?
Glycol chiller for wort chilling. Well, I think perfect time. We will take this out and we will show you the cool stick. So I would say that a wort chiller is very much like the cool stick that is inside the unit here. And so we'll kind of take, it has the clear float technology as well inside here, which I forgot to go over. But this is pretty much a wort chiller in one long tube. What's cool about the cool stick, which I didn't go over, is how easy this thing is to clean versus a lot of the other setups on the market that are like ours. You have the coils or whatever. This is one rod, very easy to clean it. And this was something I didn't go over, which is our float technology, which kind of floats on top of your beer. So you can actually serve right out of this guy. So it kind of, floats on top, liquid goes in, and you can kind of serve right out of that guy. So I didn't go over that, should have. So what I was going though is this is kind of the same thing as your kind of wort chiller. You hook up your in and your out, and you can put it right into your brew kettle if you wanted to. So obviously you would need the right hookups to your wort chiller, which you can get adapters to. That's pretty much what I would be doing. You would be sitting here kind of adjusting your temperature on the fly, which is a little challenging, right? If you're having it in there, you're kind of adjusting based off kind of what's happening inside your kettle, but be very simple, right? I mean, just an in and out to your wort chiller, put it in your brew kettle, and then kind of adjust. yeah, no reason you couldn't do that with one of these. Yeah, pretty simple.
Great. And another question, is there a recommended size chiller per barrel? I have a 1-barrel system and wondering what requirements are needed.
Yeah, so good question. So again, it depends on, so there isn't really necessarily one size per se. Most of our chillers will tell you, especially on the home side, kind of like what we've done with them and how we've kind of utilized them. So we try to put that right in the product description, especially on morebeer.com. I know it's like not the same infos on Brewbuilt as MoreBeer. So morebeer.com, especially for morebeer.com, especially for that the Brewbuilt Max 4 kind of puts kind of what I said earlier right in the product description. So it kind of guides you based off of your fermenter, what it can do. So no, there isn't necessarily one size, but yes, you do want to make sure you don't get one that's probably too small. Most of the chillers that we're selling right now, all of them can handle, I should say all, be careful with what I say, but most should be able to handle a 31-gallon just fine by itself. But to be honest, I use a glycol calculator. I would say like that's one thing I didn't mention earlier is I have a tool that we have developed to make the math simple. So I literally plug in the specs of your fermenter, especially for, you know, and I'm kind of talking like when I size chillers for professional, for breweries and wineries, I'm literally putting in how many fermenters, the exact dimensions of the tank, the surface area that you're able to cool, how long the lines are, and then I'm able to get a calculation out for the amount of tons of cooling power, and then I use that calculation to help the customer size. You know, I use that, and I usually work in a little wiggle room, and it actually makes it pretty simple. And so that's something that's not that readily available out there in the market. And I think one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of glycol calculators on the market is because the math is challenging, and people do have different theories on different applications. So I have been using the same basic calculator for 10 years though, and had very good results and very little issues selling to professional breweries and wineries. So I'm pretty confident in the calculator we use. So that's what I would do. On a homebrew size, though, I think I would be looking at our product descriptions and seeing kind of what we've said each unit should be able to do, and that's how I would do it. Or you're happy to ask me or any one of our the representatives here, like, hey, can you put it into your glycol calculator and see what it kind of spits out? Happy to do that. On the small side, on the homebrew side, unless you're cold crashing, you just don't need that much power. So a lot of the units will have plenty, but to do it accurately, you would want to calculate it.
All right. Another question, icemaster versus stasis versus penguin.
Oh man, great question. I don't know the other products as well, just to be really honest. I'm a lot more familiar, just being honest, on the pro side. I've just been very focused on our products on the homebrew side, and then I'm more experienced these days in the market for commercial chillers and those brands. So I don't know, actually. I'm happy to research though and get back. That's a great question. I don't know as much the competitive glycol home chillers that are out right now. I know the SS Brewtech one and a few ones. I would kind of just stick to kind of just talking about our unit and saying that we've worked really hard with a supplier to find a unit that has this kind of cooling capacity at a ridiculous price point. So I think we are really trying to find a very, very high end chiller at the same time while delivering a really low end price, or as an aggressive price, maybe not low end, but an aggressive price in the marketplace with our chiller. So I've had very good feedback from people with the icemaster, and really had no one coming to me to find other units, which is interesting when I talk to homebrewers on this scale. I don't have a lot of other people ever looking at a lot of other ones once they see ours, I guess. So yeah, but that's another great question that I can research and follow up on as well.
Great, we'll send that follow up. And last one from Emily Lovato is, what chemicals would you recommend to clean this equipment and sanitize?
Of course, Emily won. Let's be real. PBW, Starson, come on, Emily. Let's be real. But no, I mean, no joke. I mean, that's what I still use to this day at home. I've used many other cleaning products, and I do still stick with PBW and Star San. I mean, give me that bad boy. Look at that. We got Star San right here. Oh yeah,
Nice.
Product placement.
Nice.
So no, I mean, our company is pretty locked into 5-star products, not just because of our relationship, but because of the quality of the products. I think I've tested, my 12 years, many cleaning products, and especially PBW. There's really nothing like PBW. It really is one of the best cleaners on the market. I don't think you can get a better one. So there you go, Emily.
Good answer. All right.
And we're locked in here at MoreBeer with 5-star just for that. I think all our manuals and everything is that way because of the quality of your guys' product.
Well, we appreciate that. If there aren't any other questions, doesn't look like there are right now. I think that's good. Like I said, I'll get some answers from David for the follow-up email. That'll probably come the beginning of next week when we can make sure we have everybody's questions answered. I'll send some contact information for MoreBeer so that everyone can contact him or his customer service, just in case you have any other follow-up questions. So we really appreciate everyone attending. Thank you again, David. I just also wanted to remind everyone that our next presentation will be with John Palmer. Thursday,
nice.
January.
You guys doing John?
Yeah, January 27th. He's going to be presenting on fermentation. So we hope that everyone can join. And thanks again.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.